Hi, this is Tom Needham, and joining us today on The Sounds of Film is Todd Bieber. We're going to be speaking about his latest film, American Cats: The Good, the Bad, and the Cuddly. Todd is a Peabody and Emmy winner. You probably know his films Jordan Klepper Solves Guns and Gary Saves the Graveyard. American Cats is told through the observations of host Amy Hoggart from Full Frontal with Samantha Bee. The film was recently screened at the Hamptons International Film Festival, and American Cats takes a serious look at the issue of cat declawing in a very humorous way. Todd, thank you so much for joining us today on The Sounds of Film.
Tom, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, this is a very interesting film, very entertaining, but brings up some serious issues. What initially inspired you to create a documentary about cat declawing?
Well, it's kind of twofold. One, I live in New York City now, but I grew up on a sixth generation family farm in Pennsylvania. But by the time I came around, that farm had just turned into a place where people dropped off cats locally. There was no other farm animals. So there was, I evidently became known as a family that would spay and neuter your cat if you wanted to abandon a cat. And so I guess it was a little cat sanctuary that I grew up with. And I was in charge of feeding them, taking care of them, naming all of them. And so I just grew an affection for cats that is, uh, I would say, very healthy, whereas other people might call it unhealthy. But I love cats. And then, fast forward to now, and I'm always looking for stories, whether it's at Full Frontal with Samantha Bee, where I was a director, or with Jordan Klepper, or any of the other, independent docs that I've made. I'm looking for absurdities in the world. And someone introduced me to Dr. Jennifer Conrad, and I heard the story of her 20-year struggle to ban declawing in cats, which is pretty widely known as like a harmful thing. Not everybody knows the extent that it's harmful. But then she told me that the reason that it's still legal in the United States is that veterinarians are the ones fighting in legislation to keep it legal. And there was an absurdity to that. Like these veterinarians who were supposed to be taking care of our animals were the ones promoting harmful acts. And I'm like, that can't be. What is going on here?
Mm.
And that really, and also that Jenny is such an interesting person, a great, you know, I hate to use the word character because she's a friend, and every Freddie in documentary is a human beyond character. But we're always looking for characters as documentary filmmakers, and she is a character, and I really enjoyed spending time with her. So yeah, those are kind of the impetus for this documentary.
Well, you brought up a lot of different things, so let's backtrack a little bit.
Yeah.
At that point, when you were taking in all these cats on your farm, how many did you have at the most?
At the most, we had 30 cats at the most. That was like the most, and it was not us like adopting cats. It was like people would drop off pregnant cats, and if three pregnant cats got dropped off at your house, that meant in, I don't know, like 6 weeks, you're gonna have 30 cats. So every spring, yeah, it was very fun for me as a child. I'd go hunt the barn in the haylofts and around the different areas, where that used to be for cows and pigs and chickens. I'd look for where the mama cats hid their babies. So,
Wow. And what did you start to appreciate about cats when you had all that time with them?
well, no single cat has every single cat has its own personality. And this idea that there's one type of cat and that I don't like cats. When I hear people say that, I'm like, well, you just haven't met the right cat. Because I've met cats that I don't like.
Yeah.
you know, and I've met cats but I met more cats that I adore more than that. And you know, each one had its name, each one had its personality. Some would go away for 2 months and then wander back in, and some would couldn't leave your lap. So knowing their personalities, knowing their traits, And as I got older, people would joke with me, "You're a cat whisperer," and I'm like, "No, I just know that like when its tail's doing that, you should not pet it because the cat's gonna like probably be mad or agitated." And so all these little things that like you just kind of pick up by being around tons of cats became inherent in me. And then in the documentary, we got to go talk to a behaviorist,
Hmm.
and all of a sudden, some of the science between the things that I had kind of like subconsciously observed, I was like, oh wow, that makes sense. Yes,
Right.
that's why their eyes are like this, or their tail is like this, or their arch their back like this. This is why this is what they're trying to communicate with us. And I suppose like the one thing I learned from both when I was young and from now is that cats are always talking to us. They just don't have the words to use it.
Wow. That's so fascinating. You go to so many different places in this film that I wasn't expecting, that I really enjoyed. But let's start off with the fact that the movie is pretty funny. And, you mentioned some of the work that you've done, Frontal and Samantha Bee. You use Amy Hoggart in this film. And I was wondering why that was a choice that you made. It's a great choice, but it's an interesting one.
Yeah, well, Amy and I, worked together on Full Frontal with Samantha Bee, and we've gone to some of the craziest places. We've gone to NRA conventions, we've gone to Trump rallies, we've gone to furry conventions, and Amy has this ability to talk to people with a sense of empathy and curiosity that is unlike any other. But she also has this ability to like, how you have a friend who like just gives you a hard time, but you've been friends forever, so they're allowed to give you a hard time, and
Right.
it's endearing and it's nice. Amy does that with people immediately, and but like in a way that they like enjoy, and it's just it's just her, it's just who she is. And these type of topics, that are tough to discuss sometimes are best approached with humor and best approached with, in my opinion, like a human connection. And I think that talking with Amy, I know she loves cats because I just know that from being friends with her. And then also I know that she is always curious about American culture. And because this is it's called American Cats, having her kind of outside observations and curiosities about American culture was a great way to start to question the things that I think are normal for me, maybe normal for the people we talk to. And she just saw some of the smaller absurdities that I couldn't recognize. And, I love movies like my first favorite documentary was Roger and Me. So I
Yeah.
love a hosted documentary. I love Louis
It's
Theroux.
yeah.
Um, and Nick Broomfield.
Hmm.
Wait, is that his last name? Yeah. So like I love these kind of absurd, characters going into places and asking all the wrong questions. They're actually all the right questions. So yeah, that's kind of the motivation for it.
I agree. Those are some of the classics, and people do enjoy those. And
Mm,
it allows you to go to some serious topics that may be handled differently. Wouldn't be as entertaining. Um,
yeah.
I honestly did not know as much about Declawing as you get into in this movie. And for our listeners, you don't have to give everything away, but Declawing seems pretty bad. Can you give our listeners just a little sense of what happens when they take their cat to get declawed?
Yeah, sure. Essentially, it shouldn't be called declawing because it's actually denuckling. And what it is like if you look at your hand, if you took the first two joints of each finger off of your hand, that's actually the procedure that you're doing. You're doing it to your fingers and toes. Now, imagine trying to live life without those first two knuckles on your fingers and toes. It would be pretty difficult. And then on top of that, oftentimes the procedure leaves a little bit of bone in there, and so not only is it like hamper your ability to navigate the world, but then it's like walking with a pebble in each one of your toes on both feet and your fingers at all times. So that would probably make you a pretty irritable person if that was you. And that's what we're doing to our cats, just to make it so that they don't scratch up our furniture in most cases. And what that does is like it changes their entire body posture because they have to reconfigure. So that doesn't mean like they're the feeling that they get on their fingers and toes or their paws is painful. But then also, when you have like an injury and you're like all of a sudden, oh, my back hurts. Why does my back hurt? And it turns out it was like your knee injury. That's for cats all the time. So then when you start to pet them on their back, they become irritable because their spine is now out of shape.
Wow.
And then it's and that also what that does is because they lost their claws, then they tend to bite more, and
Right.
they also the peeing in a litter box is really painful for them because the little pebbles are harder in their feet, and so they start peeing outside the litter box. So all this stuff that we're doing to like you know accommodate changing cats to accommodate our life is making the cat's really painful. And if you don't buy into that, if you're a person who doesn't respect cats like in that way, you're making your life worse too. So like on both levels, it's just a totally bad decision. But it's $1 billion industry in the United States,
Wow.
and that's what blew my mind. It billions of dollars, $1 billion a year is made off of cat declawing, and that's why it's still legal.
I love documentaries where you find out that some nonprofit or some group that you thought was doing good is actually doing something harmful. Some
Hmm.
environmental group that's like supporting policies that's hurting the environment, something like that. This movie is one of those types of films. Like you alluded to, um, people think that that they really actually are just looking out for the best interest of the animals. But you make the point in the movie that that's not actually the case, and you actually go into the whole history of what the purpose of the profession is, which is amazing. Can you explain that to our listeners?
Yeah, yeah, and that kind of blew me away too. It's really obvious once they say it out loud, but like animals were traditionally in society in the early 1900s, even. They were for transportation and they were for meat production, and they weren't really thought of as companion animals. Like that was just not. It was true, but it wasn't really like the priority. And then it wasn't until like the 60s, 70s that we really embrace the idea that they're solely companion animals and not just for meat and transportation. And so much of the veterinary industry is still based off of the idea that they are transportation and they are meat. And the policies that exist today still follow that. And up until I think 2010, the veterinary oath, for humans, it's like do no harm. For veterinarians, the until recent history it was um, do to the animals what will benefit society, and it didn't say to benefit the animal, it said to society. So that means like do what's best for humans, not what's best for the animal. That just blew my mind that that was the oath.
Wow. That's crazy. And as you said, it's $1 billion industry. So one gets the impression when watching your movie that the reason that they're doing these procedures is really just to make money, that the outcome is terrible for the animal, even for the pet owner. But it's a very profitable business, isn't it? I mean, it's just really
Yep.
crazy. Um,
I want to, not all, like a lot of veterinarians don't do this, and a lot of veterinarians are animal lovers, and we interviewed some veterinarians that used to declaw and then stopped declawing because they saw the pain of it, and there are so many amazing veterinarians. So I don't want to like blanket
yeah,
state
yeah,
this about that because we the heroes of this documentary are veterinarians as much as some of the enemies are. It's just like any industry,
right.
there's amazing people in the film world. There's amazing people, but then we always hear these horror stories of the people behind the scenes that are kind of looking to exploit any avenue they can, and they find an industry where that's possible. And with pets, it's really possible because they can't advocate for themselves.
It's funny with this current political cycle. One would never guess that cats would come up. But what do you make of the recent comments with JD Vance about cat ladies? And how does that
I
figure into anything in this film, if at all?
Well, it's so funny. Funny is not the right word. Absurd, I guess, is the right word. But like, we have a section within the documentary that dissects the idea of crazy cat lady.
Mm.
And Dr. Jennifer Conrad, is featured in this documentary and has been trying to outlaw declawing, has been for the last 20 years by legislators, by fellow veterinarians, written off as a crazy cat lady. And that has been a thing that almost is like, well, she's a crazy cat lady. She just wants, and so they're so dismissive of her point of view, even though she's a doctor with years and years and years of professional experience, more than anyone who's criticizing her. All of a sudden, you say that word, crazy cat lady, and people dismiss her, and it's misogynistic, it's awful, and so when JD Vance said that, I was like, this is what Jenny's been telling me. This is what Jenny was describing to me, and now he's using it as a political point in his documentary. And I went to Hamptons and I met an artist who had been making these signs about crazy cat ladies who vote, and she gave me a poster for it. So I think there are people who are hopefully seeing themselves in the documentary, seeing how they've been dismissed in the by people in the documentary, but also we'll see Dr. Jennifer Conrad as someone who's like, nah, we're not crazy cat people. They're the wrong ones. And I think JD Vance is
And one of the cool things though in the movie though is that it's not slanted politically because you have people who are anarchists and you have Curtis, the guardian
Sliwa.
angel, yeah, featured in the film, and it goes to show that cat lovers come from all political backgrounds, right?
Yeah, and that's what we had heard, and then that you talked earlier about going to those weird places, and in early interviews where they're like, everybody's a cat lover, Republicans, Democrats, why are we arguing about this? And so I was like, I want to take this to the nth degree, and Amy and I talked about it. We're like, we're gonna go to an anarchist, and we're gonna go to Curtis Sliwa, who is a Republican mayoral candidate, and Curtis is a bit of a character. He also lives in a 300 square foot apartment with 18 street cats. Um, which was we're like, okay, let's go to fun places to kind of dissect these things. And you saw that anarchists to right-wing Republicans love cats.
I know it's not the point of the movie, but I was kind of surprised. Is that really where he lives? In
Yeah.
in a tiny apartment like that with all those cats?
Yes. Yes.
What?
And it's all covered in his like um either his Sliwa for mayor or his old guardian angels things. And if you don't know who Curtis Sliwa is, you should Google him because he
Yeah,
is a New York institution, just a complete, you know, if there was ever a New York character, it's Curtis Sliwa.
that's amazing. Comedy, people say, is the toughest thing to do. I don't know if there's an easy way to explain it, but can you give us like one example from the film where you had a scene that you were shooting and how you turn it either in the editing room or through the commentary or the shooting into something that's funny for audiences?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I would normally mention the Curtis Sliwa and Anarchist one, but since we just talked about that one, I'll mention another one. There was a scene where the idea had come up and been presented to us that decalling just doesn't exist in the United States anymore. That it's like it's gone. We don't need laws to like prevent it anymore. And we wanted to find out if that was true. So Amy and I talked about it, and we're like, well, let's just call vets all over the place. And so we set up a camera, and she posed as someone that was local, and we essentially were like prank calling vets and asking them what they do, they declaw, what are the procedures they would do. So we're like, the funniest way to say this, you could just say like 70 some, I don't even know what the statistic is, but it's some large amount of people who still declaw, and veterinarians who still declaw. And we're like, we could either just say that and put it as a graphic on screen with some like dramatic music, or we could prank call a bunch of vets. And so you just look for ways to use like your comedic funny bone to make the point. Similar to like the anarchists, it's like yeah, everybody on the political spectrum loves cats. We could just say that, or we could show you an anarchist and a Republican talking about how squishy and cute they are and how they disagree politically, but they love cats. So
That's great. So you've made this film. You've shown it at the Hamptons International Film Festival. You are taking it out to other theaters. What kind of reaction are you getting from people when you show this in a theater?
it's the best. It's so fun. You know, I've sat in front of my computer and with the editor for a year by ourselves and kind of forget how funny and how poignant and all that is until you show it to an audience filled with, like, you know, cat lovers come out to see it, but also documentary fans come out to see it. And so to see people laugh and then engage with it has been really, really rewarding, and that's what we hope for. So yeah, it's been by and large extremely positive. We've gotten amazing reviews. We've gotten some awards. We yeah have just been really, really happy with the response. So that's what we're hoping for that to continue.
As a filmmaker and as somebody who obviously seems well informed and interested in various issues, like what gives you like a greater high when you see people watching your movie? Is it when they're learning something on a topic that you're fascinated with, or is it when you make them laugh?
That's a tough question. I think laughing is you know, it's just an immediate response, and it's you know, it's a form of communication that's involuntary. So you might be laughing despite yourself. You might be, and so, you know, intellectual thought processes sometimes, you know, that's an interior thing. So I can't really see if they're actually learning anything, but I can, when they respond, you know, with this whatever subconscious feeling, is just, it's very fun. It's very fun, and then I start laughing at the jokes too, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's fun. So yeah, that's great.
Well, we've been speaking about American Cats, the good, the bad, and the cuddly. We are talking with Todd Bieber. Todd, where is this film playing, and where can people go to find out more about future screenings?
So I think the best place to look, we update our Instagram all the time, and that's at American Cats Doc, DOC at the end of American Cats. And then we're going to be playing in Los Angeles for October 25th through the 31st, at the, oh gosh, I got to look up the name of the theater now. You know what? I'm gonna it's the uh I can just spell it for y'all. Laemmle. I'm not from Los Angeles, um, so I don't know this. I'm not familiar with this theater, but the Lamel, I believe, is how you pronounce
Yes,
it.
yeah, that's. I think it's a pretty famous one. I'm not from there either, but that's a big deal to play there. They've shown a lot of great movies there, and I want to highly recommend anyone who's listening out of state right now. Check out American Cats, the good, the bad, and the cuddly. And after that, I mean, over the next year, will it eventually be on streaming? What are the plans for the film?
We have some big announcements coming. I can't mention them yet, but yeah, I'm hoping that everyone will be able to check this out in 2025. I think it'll be a lot more available to everybody. So follow us if you hear about it today, because I think in a few months you'll be able to readily see it in your own house. Hope, fingers crossed.
Well, Todd, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Really funny movie, important points made in it, and very entertaining. Everyone, check out American Cats, the good, the bad, and the cuddly. Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye.